What is up, guys? This is Nightmare, and today I have a new build video for you all. This is my updated Magicka Sorcerer build for the Wolfhunter update that I am calling Sempiternum. This is an update to a build that I had previously for my Magicka Sorcerer, and I've been playing with this build all through the Somerset update, and I've now decided to release this build for you all for the Wolfhunter update. So this build performs at a very high tier in PvP. It is very great. It covers all three aspects that you need to perform at a very high level for PvP. So I'm talking you're tanky or you have good survivability. That's 1. 2, you have really good sustain, being able to recover your stats very easily. And 3, of course, the most important, being able to put out enough damage to get kills. If you're not putting out damage, then you're not getting kills, then there really isn't any point to 1vx or 2vx or anything like that. So with that, let's get right into the sets. Alright guys, so starting off as always, I'm going to go over my gear and sets that I will be using for this build. First off is Shacklebreaker. Now, Shacklebreaker, in my opinion, is one of the best sets you can run on a sorcerer for both Magicka and stamina. The stats you're getting with this set are just too great to pass up when you combine it with your dark conversion or your dark deal. I'll explain on that in a second. So Shacklebreaker is giving us both weapon and spell damage, both stam and Magicka recovery, and then we're also getting a big Magicka pool and a big stamina pool. So why is this good on a Magicka Sorcerer? So first off, of course, we're getting some spell damage, which is going to help put out damage for us. And then the fourth piece bonus gives us both stam and Magicka recovery. So this helps our Magicka sustain directly, but indirectly helps our Magicka sustain through stamina recovery. And this is due to dark conversion. With dark conversion, we can take the extra stamina we have and give us extra Magicka. So as you can see here, as my Magicka goes lower and lower, if I'm spamming abilities or whatever, let's get it down to about 50% here if I can. That's close enough, and with just a few casts of dark conversion, I am back to pretty much full Magicka with very little loss in stamina. So moving on, we also have a very high stamina and Magicka pool due to the 5-piece bonus. The stamina pool is just going to be really good for having something more to pull from for dark conversion and also breaking free, which the stamina recovery also comes in handy for breaking free. And then the Magicka pool is very nice to make us get bigger wards and bigger damage and bigger heals. So this set pretty much covers all three aspects already. You have your recovery with Magicka recovery, stamina recovery. That helps our sustain in both ways. Our survivability or tankiness comes from the max Magicka, giving us bigger wards. And then for our damage, of course, we're getting damage from the max Magicka and then the spell damage. Okay, so that pretty much covers up the Shacklebreaker set. Now, for the front bar, I'm using a Nirntone's Inferno Staff. Inferno Staff for the direct damage passive, Nirntone for increased spell damage. And then I'm also using a shock damage enchant. This is due to sorcerer passives. Moving on, I have an infused Shacklebreaker Resto Staff. Resto Staff is very important for survivability in PvP. We're using infused on top of the weapon and spell damage enchant. So we're getting a huge amount of spell damage when we proc a light attack with the Resto Staff, bar swap to the Destro Staff, and then we go to town with our damage. So same thing, Shacklebreaker, same stats of course. Moving on, our 2-piece monster set we're using is going to be Infernal Guardian. I personally really like Infernal Guardian. You can use other sets such as Engine Guardian, etc. But this is really good for the 1-piece max Magicka, and 2-piece just lets us get some more damage. So the Magicka bonus, bigger wards of course, again, and then the 2-piece bonus. Whenever you cast a shield, you have the 50% chance to throw 3 mortars, and they do quite a bit of damage. Launches it to the furthest enemy away in an AoE, and it can occur. This can proc every 6 seconds, which is quite nice. So I have a heavy helmet and a light shoulder at the moment, and at the moment I am also not a vampire. If I was to switch to a vampire and get increased stamina and Magicka recovery, I would drop the 1 light piece here and go to a medium, just to help balance out the extra damage I would take from being a vampire. I'm talking about fire damage, of course, but the medium piece does increase our armor, so that helps offset that. And then the Magicka recovery would lose from getting a medium piece is also going to get offset from the recovery from vampire. So that's my reasoning behind that. Of course, we're using endpin head. I do still use some endpin pieces on a Magicka Sorcerer, just so when your shields drop, you're not going to get one shot by a 20k end cap from a Nightblade out of stealth. That's my only reasoning from that. So I'm using a variety of different traits here just because I kind of like how I have it. I have 2 infused on the big pieces. So we have a infused chest and infused legs. This is a purple enchant, by the way. That's why it's not as much as this one. I have 1 endpin, 2 endpin, 3 endpin, 4 endpin. So 4 endpin total. 2 infused and 1 divines. So moving on, we have our Shacklebreaker infused chest, divines, light infernal guardian shoulder, and then our second 5-piece set we're using is a must-have, in my opinion, for a Magicka Sorcerer. So we already have 3 things taken care of: our damage, our survivability, and our sustain. Wizard's Riposte is just going to further increase our sustain and our tankiness. As you can see here, we have a health bonus, so we're going to get pretty tanky, a spell damage bonus. We also get another Magicka recovery bonus for a total of 2 Magicka recovery bonuses. And then the 5-piece bonus, which is insanely strong for Magicka Sorcerers. Whenever you take critical damage, you apply minor maim to enemies for 5 seconds, reducing their damage done by 15%. So, I don't think a lot of people understand that this set can proc off of Magicka Sorcerer shields or shields in general. So you can still crit a shield, and the game will register that as a crit. However, the shield does not take the extra damage from the crit. So pretty much what I'm saying is Wizard's Riposte will proc even if you have a shield on. Plain and simple. So this is what makes the set so strong, and it's not on a cooldown. The 5 seconds is how long it is applied on the enemy. It'll keep reapplying if they keep critting you, so you can spread this across 20 people in a 1vx, as long as you're getting crit often. And as long as you're keeping your shields up, you won't be taking damage and still be proccing this on them. And the 15% reduced damage done is going to make you very, very tanky. So I have a belt for Wizard's Riposte and gloves of Wizard's Riposte, both in pin. Finishing off the Shacklebreaker set with the legs and the feet, and then I'm using Wizard's Riposte jewelry, all spell damage enchants. So this really makes our Magicka Sorcerer really strong with our set combination with Shacklebreaker, Wizard's Riposte, and then Infernal Guardian. The potions you can use, I use trash Magicka potions at the moment, just because I've run out. But you could use the movability pods, which really help in 1vx. Food we're using, of course, is going to be Witch Mothers for max Magicka, max health, and Magicka recovery. And that's pretty much going to cover my consumables and the gear I'm using. So next up, I will go over my abilities. Alright, so next up, I'm going to go over my skills that I'm using for this build. It's a pretty simple setup, pretty common across other Magicka Sorcerers. However, I do a couple things differently. and that usually is on the back bar. Front bar is pretty similar to other builds. So on the front bar, of course, crystal frags. You proc it, you throw it, you hit big damage. Very nice. And due to this not hitting a crowd control anymore, we swap that in. I don't use Force Pulse anymore. I'm now using Flame Reach, and I also don't use the busted other morph of this, Rune Cage. I don't know how it's performing still. I know a lot of people still use it. It was busted in Somerset. I'm pretty sure it's still busted now. I don't use it. I just think it's cheesy and it doesn't perform right, so I prefer not to use it. If you want to use it, go ahead and do so. But I use Flame Reach. This is a nice ranged crowd control ability for a CC, hard CC knockback, whatever you want to call it. And it also applies a pretty nice fire dot on the enemy. So I usually combo this in after I curse and after I have a crystal frag set up for me. Flame Reach, crystal frag, execute. So Haunting Curse is next. This is after a 3.5 second delay. It's going to blow up. Deals insane amount of damage. As you can see there, the unbuffed tooltip is 13,000 buffed up. It's now at almost 14,000, and crystal frags is at 16,000. And then after 8.5 seconds after the first explosion, it's going to blow up again. Usually I recast this after 3.5 seconds. But just in case, if like a sorcerer, not a sorcerer, if a Nightblade was to cloak on me, and they get away, they're still going to have the second curse still on them. It'll blow up and pull them out of stealth, which is really nice. Really good for hunting down Nightblades. But you pretty much just chain this in with your combo on a Magicka Sorcerer. The 3.5 delay is actually what makes this ability so strong, because you're able to pretty much have the curse blow up at the same time that your Endless Fury is blowing up and your Crystal Frags hits, and you pretty much one-shot everybody with those three abilities. So that's Haunting Curse. Next ability is Endless Fury. This is our Execute. It's going to do 4k shock damage, which is still quite a bit of damage, even when you can't throw your two projectiles for some reason, like you're going against a Magicka DK or a DK in general that is spamming their flappers that reflect. You wouldn't be able to throw these two, so you can always put a little bit more pressure with Light Attack and Endless Fury. But the main thing is the Execute. You can throw this on. If they hit 20% health, it's going to blow up. And it's nice because it holds like a charge on them, kind of. It's also kind of like Haunting Curse. Within 4 seconds, if they hit 20% health, it'll blow up. Also, if they're already below 20% health, it'll blow up right away. As you can see, it's a 14k shock damage and then another 2500 shock damage to enemies nearby. So it's a nice single target Execute. You don't really use this for an AoE. And then I use Endless Fury because of the Magicka return. I don't use the other morph. I don't see it being as useful as often, but the Magicka return is always very nice from Endless Fury. And then next up on this bar, I use Hardened Ward. I use Hardened Ward on my front bar because I'm using Infernal Guardian. So there's 3 reasons why I use Hardened Ward on front bar. The first reason, like I said, is because of Infernal Guardian. I can proc this with damage through Hardened Ward on front bar. I don't have to keep swapping back to the back bar to proc Infernal Guardian. That's the first reason. Second reason, and this is the biggest reason in my opinion, is when I get damage taken, or if I get jumped or whatever, and I'm on my back bar, I'm going to use Healing Ward, Harness Magicka, and then if you had your Hardened Ward on the back bar, you're going to use your Hardened Ward, but you're still going to be on back bar. For me personally, having Hardened Ward on the front bar forces me to get back onto the front bar after casting these 2 wards. I'm back on the front bar. I'm back on offense. It just helps put me back in that state of mind that, okay, I have all 3 wards up. I can go back to town with hitting Haunting Curse and trying to perform my next Execute and confirming a kill. So that's the reason why I put Hardened Ward on front bar, and I highly recommend you guys doing it too. It's quite nice. And then the third reason is if I get hit by a Nightblade and I'm on my front bar, I don't want to take the time to switch to the back bar and put up my wards. I want to have an emergency ward on front bar that I can hit it maybe once or twice, then I can swap healing ward, harness Magicka, back to the front bar, and then top it off with hardened ward. So, hope that makes sense, but that's my reasoning for why I put hardened ward on front bar. There's a few different reasons. So anyways, I should probably explain what it does. It's a ward, it's a shield. It's your main way to survive on a Magicka Sorcerer is your huge shields, and you shield stack. Next up I have Shooting Star on front bar. This is for Mage's Guild abilities, so you get all those passives for having this on front bar. And then you can also combo this in. It's also a delay, 2 seconds. So that's kind of the thing with Magicka Sorcerer is they have a lot of delayed burst. So you have 4 seconds here, 3.5 seconds there, 2 seconds here, and that just opens you up to have everything hit at the same moment in time. And the damage you get from all that is insane. So Shooting Star, it's a 170 ultimate cost, 17k flame damage, knockback, AoE, burst. It's a must-have in my opinion. Moving on to the back bar, Healing Ward. This is our main healing ability. So if you get down low on health, you want to be using this. This is going to top you off on health. And you want to protect this shield with Harness Magicka and Hardened Ward. So what do I mean by that? Healing Ward gives you a small heal at the start, at the cast. Now, you don't want to continue to cast this to get the small heal. The way this works is based on how much ward or shield is left, you're going to get healed based off that shield by up to 300%. So, it's the shield increased 300% based on how low in health you are. And then it's going to heal you for 105% of the shield's remaining strength. So that's why you're protecting the healing ward with Harness Magicka and Hardened Ward. So that's that ability pretty much. Harness Magicka is your second shield that you're using, and it also returns Magicka when you take spell damage, any damage from that is Magicka cost or hits spell damage, whatever. So this is a nice ability to help sustain, and then also more survivability and protecting the healing ward. Like I said, you put Hardened Ward over top of Harness Magicka. So following up, this is where abilities can get changed pretty commonly on a Magicka Sorcerer, and this is my preferred setup. So I use Streak. This is my gap closer. It's also a stun for AoE stun. Anyone you streak through will get stuns. This is your way to kite enemies. Get away, get to cover, line of sight, whatever. You're not really using this for damage, more for a getaway tool. Next up is Dark Conversion, the main source of our sustain. Any excess stamina we have, we turn into Magicka with a 2k stamina cost, and it also returns 5k Magicka. It's also a pretty nice heal too. Moving on, this is my main source of major sorcery. This is 20% spell damage buff. It also gives us some healing whenever we crit. So I use this over the other way that you can get major sorcery, which is through Mage's Guild Entropy. I prefer not to use Entropy whenever I don't have to. I use it on Magicka Nightblade, and that is it. I like being able to buff up with Power Surge before getting into a fight. So that's my reasoning for that. So that pretty much covers the main 2 bars. On my 3rd bar, however, I do have a few other abilities. So Daedric Minefields, this is where I put my mines on back bar. Since I'm not constantly spamming Minefield as much as I am my other abilities on my 2nd bar, I like having this on the 3rd bar. Next up we have Boundless Storm. I usually will cast this also whenever I come back to the 3rd bar. I use this for the physical and spell resistance buff. I don't keep this up 100% of the time. However, whenever I do come back to the back bar, I do use this. Streak is also on back bar, just in case I have to get away for some reason when I'm on the third bar. Rapid maneuver is to help me get around Cyrodiil quicker. I don't have to keep swapping rapid maneuver off and on a first or second bar. It just stays on the third bar. And then hardened ward is also on the third bar, just in case I get jumped and I'm on the third bar. So that is my third bar setup. If you don't know how to put and change the abilities on your third bar, it's quite simple. So here's my first bar, second bar. It's on the second bar, power overload. I'm going to use the ultimate, get into the overload kind of casting thing, and then I go into skills, and then I can change these abilities. Alright, so I just got jumped and I got knocked into water, so I wasn't able to really do anything. So I'm going to go over my passives real quick. You're going to be taking all of your you're going to be taking all of your sorcerer passives. All of them are important. All of your Destro Staff passives and all of your Resta Staff passives. I don't have all of them yet, but it doesn't really hurt me too much because this is only affecting your healing ward, which it doesn't really hurt too much. Light armor passives, of course. You're going to have medium armor passives if you're running 511. You're going to have Windwalker and Athletics. And then heavy armor passives, you don't need the last two, but you want the first three. You don't need fighter skill passives, and mage's skill passives are also very nice. You're using Shooting Star, so these are really good. Undaunted level 9 is going to be a must if you're running 511 or even 6-1. You're either going to get 6% increased stats or 4% like me. Like I said, you can be a vampire if you choose to. At the moment, I am not. Assault and support passives are good. Racial choice for this build is going to be a high elf. So you're getting 9% Magicka recovery, 10% max Magicka, and then you're getting flame, frost, and shock damage increased by 4%. Really, we're just looking at the shock damage increase, which is what the sorcerer focuses on. So you can see here, we're getting physical and shock damage increased by 5%. And we have fire damage here and shock damage here, and everything else is magic. Besides Shooting Star. Shooting Star is also fire. We also have fire from Infernal Guardian. So that's pretty much going to cover the gear. Or sorry, not the gear. I already went over gear. That's going to cover up the skills. Next up, I'll go over champion points. Alright, so next up, I'm going to go over the champion points. This is going to be important if you play in Cyrodiil champion point campaign. I do, however, play this a lot at Battlegrounds too, so just keep that in mind. So starting off, I have 75 into Elemental Expert for 14% increased damage, 51 Elfborn for 19% increased crit damage. That makes this build hit like a truck when I crit. I do crit quite often also. 66 into Master at Arms. This is for 22% increased direct damage, which is very nice. And at the moment, I have 39 into Staff Expert. I'm just playing around with this, but the increased light attack damage is actually really nice. Finishing it off, I have 7 into Blessed for increased healing done, and then 22 Spell Erosion for some extra penetration, which is always very good. 40 into Ironclad, 16% reduced direct damage taken, 56 into Hardy and Elemental Defender for 12% reduced damage across everything. 28 Thick Skin, 12% reduced 12% reduced dot damage. 7 Quick Recovery, and 72 into Bastion. Bastion is very important on a Magicka Sorcerer. Bigger shields, better survivability. 1 Impin just to finish it off. Didn't have anywhere else to throw that one. Moving on to the green, I have 40 Warlord for 16% reduced break free, and also have 28 Tumbling for 12% reduced dodge cost, 75 Arcanist for 14% magic recovery, 37 Mooncalf for 9% stam recovery, The reason for that is because of the Shackle Breaker set. 43 tenacity for 10% increased magic returns on heavy attacks, which helps our sustain quite a bit. And then 37 Siphoner. This is kind of like poisons built into the champion point tree, like I always say. So that pretty much covers the champion point setup. Alright guys, so to finish off the build, we're going to be taking a look at my max stats. So for my attribute points, I have everything into max Magicka. This is going to give me 38,000 max Magicka. I'm sitting at almost 22,000 max health with 1,700 magic recovery and 2,700 spell damage, and that is unbuffed. Buffed up with major sorcery on the front bar, we're now sitting at 3,200 spell damage, and with a potion, we are sitting at almost 2,000 magic recovery. I will also be showing a screenshot of my fully buffed up stats here. And that is with the weapon damage enchant and any other things that might have procced. So spell resistance is pretty low, along with the physical resistance even lower. Almost 11,000 spell and almost 9,000 physical. However, like I said, if you switch over to your third bar and buff up, you can now get an extra 5,000 for both, so 16,000 spell and 14,000 physical, making us a little bit tankier. And we're sitting at only 1,000 crit resistance. This is due to shield stacking and shields not being able to get crit. So moving on to our other effects that we're using, or have active, I should say, is Battle Spirit because we're in Cyrodiil. Witch Mother's Potent Brew is our food we're using, and the Apprentice is our Mundus Stone we have active for extra spell damage. And then of course, I'm in Cyrodiil, and so please take account for this being active at the moment. In Cyrodiil, increased weapon and spell damage by 2%. So usually you wouldn't have the extra 2% bonus. And then my character is bugged right now. Just wanted to show you guys this real quick, I guess. So I'm burning a lot because this build is on fire. But I don't know how this happened, so that's whatever. So that's pretty much going to cover the builds. If you guys liked it, please leave a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the comment section below. I always comment back anything. If you need help with builds, I'll always be down to help you with that. If you want to see more content from me, more builds, more gameplay, whatever, please make sure to subscribe. And if you want to get notifications, hit that bell button next to the subscribe button so you can get notified whenever I make an upload. And with that, I will see you all next time.